13 days ago, I released a Conscast episode titled The Last Time I Talk About Wilds Difficulty, which featured Ratatoskr. We talked about Monster Hunter Wilds, the Nintendo Switch 2, as well as Duskbloods. Now, this episode of Conscast was actually recorded quite a few days prior. It was recorded during my break. If you guys remember, a while back I've been mentioning that I needed to take a break because my kids were going to be on vacation from school and I wanted to carve out some time to spend time with them. And I also wanted to carve out some time to play games of Kill Team with my friends in real life. Kill Team is a tabletop game that requires quite a bit of time and space to set up, so that required a lot of scheduling to get everybody together. There's people that live in Lisbon. There's another friend that lives considerably more close by, but everybody has their own families and stuff to deal with, and that was kind of like the best week that lined up for everybody. But then I also decided that during that week, I was going to go ahead and record 2 podcasts because I figured, you know what? I'm going to be on a break. I can bang out 2 podcasts, put those in the channel, and at least that way people will have some content that they can watch. Now, one of those podcasts was the Conscast with Ratatoskr. The other one was a Conscast with Darth Microtransaction, where we talked about Path of Exile 2, which is another video game that I've been very interested in and I've been playing very actively. Now, the situation that happened during the Conscast with Ratatoskr is that during that podcast, he'd mentioned that apparently someone had made a 4-hour response video to a critique video that he had made about Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, during the podcast, I believe I said something like, holy shit, 4 hours. Now, this is not a dismissal, which is something that a lot of people were pointing out in the comment section, like, oh, you guys are dismissing the 4-hour video while you're making a 3.5-hour podcast. I didn't dismiss anything. I was just surprised about the length of a response video that was 4 hours long for a 40-minute long video. That was literally everything that I expressed throughout the whole duration of the podcast, and I received tens, maybe even hundreds of comments of people like, how can you dismiss the video like that? You need to watch the video. You need to do it right now. And it's like, I'm literally on a break. I don't have 4 hours to go watch a video while I'm trying to spend time with family and spend time with friends. And it's one of those things where if it's like a couple of comments saying this, it's whatever, but it is multiple comments like, you need to watch the video. What's your stance on the video? Everybody wanted to talk about this video. And I'm like, man, this must be like this super important video. And before we even get into talking about that, there is one thing that I want to express right now off the bat. If you're going to be watching this video and then you're even considering about going over to another content creator's comment section and hurl abuse or vitriol at them, don't do that, because that's really fucking stupid, and that's obviously not the intent behind any of the videos that are made, at least from my part. I definitely don't feel any type of way towards Meatman. I don't feel like I've been slighted. I don't feel like, oh man, I hate him. I can't stand him. I can't believe you would talk about me like that. Especially because I am someone that constantly seeks out differing viewpoints from mine on the internet. And having 4 hours of content to watch that are basically a different opinion from mine is something that is actually pretty good for me. I enjoy consuming that content. I just needed to carve out enough time to actually watch it, which I've since then done. Now, there are a lot of things that I want to talk about that video, but one of the first ones that we need to address is the misinformation angle, which he is, in fact, correct. I am wrong about the Monster Hunter World Anjanath thing that I mentioned during the Preach podcast, where I had mentioned that Anjanath was a quitting point for a lot of players in Monster Hunter World. And I do distinctly remember reading a lot of articles about this, about Anjanath being some kind of like a quitting point. And the interesting thing is he has numbers that he has taken from Xbox achievement, PlayStation trophies, Steam achievements, and all of that stuff. And the numbers that I was talking about are actually not the same numbers that he is presenting. The numbers that he is presenting are actually even more in favor of me than the numbers that I'm referencing, because you see, I was actually more wrong than what was mentioned in the video. It was even worse. And let me explain why. So my idea was that there was data from PSN trophies. Now, I don't know how accurate this website is. It is PSN profiles, but the data that Monster Hunter Meatman has in his video is actually more recent. And in that data, the drop-off from Anjanath is actually greater than it was back into the numbers that I was thinking about. See, because if you go to the Wayback Machine, you can actually go further back into the trophies of Monster Hunter World, and you can see the drop-off. Now, for Anjanath, the drop-off is going to be the Defender of Astera. That means that anybody who killed Anjanath is going to get the Defender of Astera trophy. That's the one that you get. And if you look here, I've already done like the calculation, and from Welcome to the New World to Nothing Stops This Commission, which I don't even know which quest this refers to, the drop-off is 6.3%. And then to Defender of Astera, it is 7.85. Now, I believe that in his document, it's 8-point-something% or something along those lines. And then after that, it goes to 7.28. So it is still somewhat of a drop-off point, but it is not as significant drop-off point as I imagined. So where did I get this idea? Now, the problem is I don't usually tend to save 7-year-old articles in expectance to defend some position that I've taken in the past 7 years into the future. But if we do look, we will see that there's quite a bit of complaints from people about Anjanath being a massive difficulty spike, both on the Steam forums, on official media websites, on GameFAQs. Even there's like an article on the Structoid that talks about all of that stuff. And that's all fine and dandy, but the numbers quite simply don't support it. However, there is another article that might have been the thing that kind of skewed my viewpoint on this, which is an older article from IGN. And it says here, Anjanath posed a threat to Fujioka as well. Now, for those of you that don't know, Fujioka is one of the main brains behind Monster Hunter. He usually handles a lot of the art aspects and all that stuff. Lance Main, Fujioka-san, really nice guy. Got to meet him earlier this year. Super happy about that. But, we have here, between conversations with friends and vast complaints read online, it seems that Anjanath is Monster Hunter World's first wall, a challenge that requires hunters to rethink strategies and forge new armor and weapons to get past. He thought, I'm doing okay, but I can't really get past this monster, Anjanath, so I'm going to have to make something new so that I can battle it. This is what the interpreter said. Though it may feel reaffirming to know that this pink T-Rex gave Monster Hunter World's own director trouble, his solution to the problem is a little less than comforting. He chose to hunt the ostensibly even more dangerous Rathian. Yes, Rathian, the more dangerous Rathian, in order to create gear that was up to snuff against Anjanath. I know this fight, it shouldn't be too difficult for me, Fujioka said of his thought process on farming Rathian. Rathian's been around since the original Monster Hunter from 2004, so after more than a decade of practice, it should make for an easier fight for a veteran Monster Hunter compared to Anjanath. Rathian armor also provides both high defense and fire resistance, traits other armor forgeable from Wildspire wastes and ancient forest materials lack. In the end, it was the most logical choice for Fujioka. So even for Fujioka-san, it was a bit of a wall for him to overcome. And then there's all this talk about conversations with friends, vast complaints read online, and this might be what formed my idea that a lot of people quit at Anjanath. However, I'm thankful a mistake was pointed out, something that I firmly believed in, and I was absolutely wrong. It is what it is. If in all of my years of content creation, this is one of the few mistakes that I've done, I think I'm pretty happy with that. If it's not if I'm just not full of inaccuracies all over every single podcast that I've ever done, I'll be quite happy. Everybody makes mistakes. It is what it is. Now, beyond that, during the video, it is kind of I feel like my skill on the game is vastly exaggerated. And this is something that appears to happen in the Souls community as well, which I've been referred to in the Souls community as a veteran as well, as someone that played the original Demon Souls, somebody that played Dark Souls and all of that stuff. I was playing, basically I started playing Dark Souls before Dark Souls was popular. I'm hipster Rurikhan, whatever the meme happens to be for that. But the reality is, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand, the amount of time that you play a video game doesn't necessarily translate into skill. Now, you are going to become better at the game, absolutely. But unless you are specifically focusing on honing your skills towards a specific direction, your improvement is only going to go so far. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was referenced as being an OG veteran, because the game that I started with was Monster Hunter Tri. I've mentioned this multiple times. But the interesting thing is, even though I started with Monster Hunter Tri, I hated it. When I first started playing Monster Hunter, I hated playing Monster Hunter Tri. And I actually only started enjoying Monster Hunter when I started playing Freedom Unite with my friend, who kind of took me under his wing and taught me how to play Monster Hunter and what's the point of playing Monster Hunter and the gameplay loop that you can expect from Monster Hunter. And that has been something that I've always wanted to replicate for everybody else, to try and get more people into Monster Hunter. Now, as I've always said, before Monster Hunter World, I had never really set foot onto G rank in any of the Monster Hunter titles. Now, I played Freedom Unite. I played 3 Ultimate. I played, I guess I played a little bit of Tri, but not too much. I played 4 Ultimate, and I played Generations. But I never really set foot in G rank. And the reasoning behind that is because, like I've mentioned, it's on the 3DS. And 3DS, small console, I can usually play it if I'm out and about, but if I'm home in front of a big screen, I hate playing 3DS. Not to mention it's small, my hands cramp up, I just don't like playing 3DS over long periods of time. Having said that, I still poured hundreds of hours into 4 Ultimate. I did beat high rank, but I never went beyond high rank. And so my skill in the game only really began solidifying once I reached endgame of Monster Hunter World. And the reasoning for that is because Monster Hunter World was when I was able to actually create content. Because I was already a content creator, for the longest time when Monster Hunter World came out. And the thing is, I couldn't be a Monster Hunter content creator because of the fact that the game's released like 1 year behind their release dates in Japan. So most of the real dedicated Monster Hunter content creators, they would know or be able to understand basic Japanese or gameplay mechanics and all of that stuff. And they would be making videos on the Japanese version of the game, which was something that I wasn't really willing to do, because I'm like, listen, I already have a hard time understanding how to play these games, let alone try to understand how to play them in Japanese. It's quite simply not going to happen. So with World having a worldwide release, that was when I actually jumped into it. Now, the whole thing about finding clips of me playing poorly, you can find those today. As a matter of fact, if you go to the very first live stream that we did of Monster Hunter Wilds, we carded a Chemetrace because I decided to do a challenge run and I wasn't used to playing without the Palico, and Chemetrace just caught me off guard, killed me. And that, I feel, is one of the important things that I want to bring up. There is a very different aspect when you are playing a video game versus when you are streaming a video game. At least for me, I'm not saying that this is the case for everyone, but this is something that I've always expressed. For me, playing a video game is very different than when I'm streaming a video game. Because if I'm streaming a video game, I'm mostly focused on the chat. I'm focusing on, is chat having a good experience? Are they entertained? Are they enjoying, the show? Is everything cool? Are we chill? And usually if I feel like that's not happening, I change things up. I will, whatever. The point is, I'm not going into a Monster Hunter game try-harding in a live stream. And usually when I do, sometimes it might end up being hilarious, but it's not intentional because it's just me getting mad at the game, which has probably happened during Elatreon, probably happened during Fatalis, probably happened during some Arch-Tempered Monsters during World, I would imagine, and during Iceborne. I would imagine that that's happened. I know for a fact that happened during Elatreon. I was very frustrated. And same thing happened during Fatalis. Very frustrated as well. But then when I make the videos, I explain what is going on. So like when Fatalis came out, I made it very clear. I'm okay if I never defeat this monster, which I wasn't sure I was ever going to, because my skill was not up to snuff back then. Absolutely not. Not even remotely close. So yeah, I played like shit, and I still play like shit. a lot of times, especially whenever I'm trying out a new weapon or something like that. And during the release of Monster Hunter World, I was playing like a ton of different weapons. And it was mentioned that I played the beta, but when I played the beta of Monster Hunter World, I forget if those streams are still on YouTube or not. I don't think they are, because I did stream it on Twitch. When I played the beta of Monster Hunter World, my biggest focus was Switch Axe, because I wasn't really planning on maining the Gunlands. And then when I actually played the game, that's when I started playing Gunlands. So, you know, I forget which weapon I used to defeat Nergigante. I think it was the Switch Axe, but I'm not 100% sure if it was that or if it was something else. It might have been Sword and Shield. It might have been something completely different, but besides the point, right? But this is just to clear up that I'm not what I would call an OG veteran. If anything, I'm like a big casual when it comes to the older games. Now, I did start getting better by the time I got to the end of Monster Hunter World, so yeah, whatever you want to take from that, it is what it is. Now, we already talked about the whole situation with the Anjanath being a quitting point, but one of the things that was then brought up by a lot of people that came from Meatman's video is that they were saying that I'm misremembering the difficulty of Monster Hunter World. And an interesting thing, which, by the way, I'm not saying it's not possible for me to misremember something, because I've already expressed my memory is terrible. I have terrible memory for most things. However, I don't believe that I'm misremembering the experience of Base World. I don't think that is the case. And, you know, when a lot of people pointed that out, I was like, okay, so let's go back and check it out. Now, the version, the physical version of World, back when I still bought physical media for PlayStation, the one that I got was this one, which is the Master Edition of Iceborne. And I was pleasantly surprised to discover, as I took this away from my Saran wrap, Meatman, this is something that I am upset about, because I like having my physical copies Saran wrapped, okay? This was unopened, and I opened it because of you. But anyway, when I opened this, I realized, oh, it's not code in the box. I thought it was code in a box. It's not. It's the whole game is actually here, including Iceborne. This was very much a pleasant surprise for me, because I was absolutely convinced that this was code in a box. Now, because it's not code in a box and it already comes with Iceborne, it means that I can't really get the base Monster Hunter World experience from here, because there were massive changes from World to Iceborne. Massive changes in weapons, massive changes in monster behaviors, the introduction of Clagger, Clutch Claw, all of those things, which make that experience be, in my interpretation, very different from what we got with Base World. So I actually went out and I bought a physical copy of the older version, which I'm actually quite happy to own, because this is, as far as I'm aware, the only way to experience Base World again, which is you buy one of these, you put it on a PlayStation, make sure that the PlayStation's offline, you install this, and then you get the actual Base World experience without Clagger, and there you can feel what the aggression of the monsters was like before you had the additional Claggers that we got with Iceborne and all of that good stuff. And so that is going to be some of the gameplay that I'm going to be showing throughout this video. You should be watching that now. So I went back, and my objective was to actually go all the way to Anjanath and see just how hard is Anjanath. And now I could, you know, play it with a different weapon or something like that, but I figured, okay, what's the most honest way of doing this? And even though the gun lance is probably one of the weaker weapons in base Monster Hunter World, I actually don't know what the rankings were back then, because I never really cared that much. But I do think the gun lance might be a little bit weaker, but at the same time, it would be the weapon that I have the most practice with. So that should theoretically be the weapon that I performed the best with. Let me know if that makes sense for you in the comment section, but that was the approach that I was taking to it. You know, I'm going to make my best attempt of going to Anjanath and taking the best equipment that I possibly can pre-Anjanath. So I looked at all the equipment. The set that I landed on as like the health boost from the bone set on the head, the attack boost on the chest to give me a little bit of extra damage. Maybe I should have got, I don't know if, does Kuluyaku chest give crit boost or something? I forget if that's the case, but I was just like, oh, bone set has attack boost. I'll just wear 2 bone set pieces, boom, done. Then for gloves, I went with Tobi-Kadachi because that gives you a Vade Extender, which is super important skill for Gunlance, especially in World. Playing Gunlance without at least like 2 Evade Extender is vastly less comfortable than playing it with 1 Evade Extender. I wanted to get Guard, but I couldn't find Guard on any armor piece. Maybe I missed something, but I don't think there's like a viable piece. And again, I'm trying to make a good effort, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, let me go ahead, farm out everything, get max potions, get all the things, get demon drugs. I didn't do that, right? Because you're still talking about a low rank Anjanath. So I wanted to put in a good faith effort. So I went in with that. I took the Great Jagras Gunlance because that is one of the earliest Gunlances that gets shelling level 2. Although, to be honest, I don't know if that one is the best, because maybe going for something with more raw damage, considering that usually Slap Lance, when it came to World and Iceborne, was usually the preferable method. Especially if you go all the way to Iceborne. Like, if you're playing endgame Gunlance, you're either playing Slap Lance, or you're playing the Snowman exploit that deletes monsters, which is something that I personally didn't do. So, that is the set that I took into Anjanath. Now, before I got to Anjanath, an interesting thing happened, which was I was fighting Tobi-Kadachi, and curiously enough, on that attempt that I went to go do Tobi-Kadachi, I actually ended up eating for elemental resistance. I don't think I did this on purpose. I think it was like where the fresh ingredients were, and I just wanted to get health boost. And Tobi-Kadachi carded me twice. Like, if I was misremembering anything, was probably how hard Tobi-Kadachi hits and how fast it can kind of like surprise you, especially because of the slower tempo of playing Gunlance in base World. But, so I killed Tobi-Kadachi and I posted the screenshots on Twitter because I was curious to see what people would think of those screenshots, and I got a lot of pushback. People were saying like, you're purposely sandbagging and shit like that, and it's like, damn, I didn't realize I was that bad at the game that I was purposely sandbagging, but okay. I mean, I'll let you guys be the judge. I'm going to upload at least the Tobi-Kadachi and the Anjanath. I'll probably even glue those videos together with like timestamps or something like that and upload those unlisted. You'll find a link in the description of this video if you want to go watch the full hunt. And yeah, so we did that. And then I did a couple of Anjanath hunts because I wanted to kind of like get reacquainted with his moveset, because the thing with me is my brain tends to format and I get muscle memory for certain things. So in the case of Monster Hunter Wilds, I have muscle memory right now to reload for perfect block. So that might be a mistake that you'll see me do. And some people might see that and be like, he's sandbagging. It's like, no, I'm 43 years old and my muscle memory is currently, configured for Monster Hunter Wilds, which usually, you do block and you get to do perfect guards with block, and that just feels great because you get all of your shells back, and then you can do counters and do stuff like that. One of the things that I didn't remember was bouncing as much on Angie. That was definitely something I didn't remember, but you bounce a lot off of Angie's legs with yellow sharpness, which was what I had a lot of the times because, hey, guess what? Base World, full burst, sharpness consumption, that's pretty vicious. As a matter of fact, I think that like even just Wyvern firing Anjanath puts me down to yellow sharpness. So that was interesting. But basically, from my experience fighting both Anjanath and Viper Tobi-Kadachi, I was like, yeah, this is pretty much the experience that I personally remember. So then I went and I watched some of the test videos from Meatman. And again, I cannot stress this enough. If people are going to not be civil about this, for starters, I'll have to apologize in advance, I guess, because, the same way that Meatman didn't mean for people to come over to my podcast and shit all over Ratatosker and also shit all over me, I definitely don't want people to go over to his video and shit all over him. But I do want to clarify a couple of points. And so one of the things that I've already said is that this, to me, is different from this. These are two different things. Even if you are, you grab this and you equip yourself with low rank armor and you go into a low rank hunt, I think you're going to have a different experience from this. And unfortunately, I don't know how you can replicate that on PC. Obviously, I'm not going to tell people, oh, you need to go out and buy a PlayStation and buy the physical copy if you want. It's like, there's no reasonable way to request people to do that for their own testing. But that is the testing that I did. That is the footage that you guys are watching. And it is what it is. But I went back and I watched some of Meatman's test videos, just quickly scrubbed through them because I also don't want to okay, guys, I'm going to break this down. I'm going to do a 6-hour reaction to literally everything that was said because I just feel like that's just going to generate needless conflict. I watched the whole video. I watched another podcast that he did with Zune as well because people express themselves differently when they're making a video versus when they're making a podcast. And that told me more about his character and how I feel about what was said in the video as well. But anyway, continuing onwards, I went over and I watched some of his test videos. And one of the things that I've noticed is that he is eating a full meal, which you don't have access to when you are fighting Anjanath and Viper Tobi-Kadachi. Not Viper, regular Tobi-Kadachi. And, I noticed that he is looking and making sure that he's not getting more than 3 fresh ingredients because it limits how much health you get. So that makes it more fair. But at the same time, in some of the attempts, I've noticed okay, but you are getting attack up L. It's giving you, a bit more attack than you would have access to when you're fighting. And in one of the videos, I also noticed him getting resurrected with the Vigor Wasp thing. So that would mean that he's using a Palico with the Iceborne Vigor Wasp skills and all of that stuff. And on top of it, like I said, it is still post-Iceborne Monster Hunter world, which in my experience is significantly different, both in terms of weapon damage all around, as well as monster behavior, as well as the introduction of claggers, which gives you additional openings and all of that stuff. So it's I'm glad that he did all of that testing. I think it is important to test all of that stuff out, but I don't necessarily agree that is the same experience that we've had on release. It is obviously impossible to replicate the experience that we've had on release because we didn't know the monster movesets. We didn't know exactly what to expect from Great Jagras. We didn't know what to expect from Anjanath. And that is the same situation that we had with Monster Hunter Wilds. And now I'm going to have to break the thing that I've mentioned in the title of the podcast, which is I will have to briefly touch up on Monster Hunter Wilds difficulty, but I kind of feel like I should be allowed in order to respond to the lengthy 4-hour video. And the reality is, with what we knew about Monster Hunter World versus what we knew about Monster Hunter Wilds, I would have expected us to see similar situations to Anjanath in Monster Hunter Wilds, even at my current skill level. Maybe that's unreasonable. For a lot of people, it definitely seems like they feel like that is the case, that will never happen. And, that's a perfectly fine thing to feel, but I disagree. And I'm sorry if that upsets you, but I don't agree. I feel like on some monsters, I should have definitely felt what I felt back in Anjanath. And I don't remember if I beat Anjanath on my first try, but I definitely remember Anjanath being a significant step up in difficulty with, obviously, the flamethrower attack that he does, which deals a ton of damage. As a matter of fact, pretty sure I got one-shotted by it, but I wasn't at full max health because a lot of times I didn't get enough fresh ingredients on the canteen, so it is what it is. I didn't go out of my way to make max potions to test this stuff out or whatever. Maybe that's going to be some people oh, I can't believe you didn't use a max potion. It's I'm sorry, I thought it was supposed to be easy. That's what everybody was saying, right? That Anjanath is easy. Do I need to bring a max potion to make sure that I don't get one shot by the fire breath attack? I don't know about that, but that was some of the testing that I did, and in my opinion, I feel like my memory of the fight is fairly accurate. That's just something that I wanted to bring up. But Final thing that I would like to bring up is the I show speed thing. I thought was kind of weird that it was brought up near the end of the video. Uh, so I reacted to I show speed's stream of Monster Hunter Wilds because for those of you that aren't aware, I show speed, big streamer, played Monster Hunter Wilds. So naturally, I wanted to see what he thought about the game, whether or not he had enjoyed it. And for the most part, I was pretty happy that I show speed played the game. He played through the game the whole way. I had criticism of the game. I wasn't really harsh towards I show speed. I criticized that difficulty should have somewhat nudged I show speed to learn the basic mechanics of dual blades. I did not criticize I show speed's gameplay. And by the end of that reaction segment, I even mentioned that, like, hey, I'm really happy that he played it. We got our game exposed to a brand new audience. Hopefully, a lot of people will come and check out the game. I think that's really freaking awesome. That's cool. I hope he comes back for the title updates, but I don't think he will because he kind of like, he saw the credits and he thought that it was the end of the game, which obviously it isn't. But, it is what it is. He's new to the game. It's whatever. But I thought it was a strange thing to compare that to my reaction of Asmongold because the thing that I was complaining about I show speed, and yes, I exaggerated, it should take 40 minutes for you to kill it without basic understanding of the weapon. 40 minutes is obviously an exaggeration, but it should take longer, like, I don't know, 15 minutes. It should take about maybe 20, 30, 25, something like that, if you don't understand the basic mechanics of your weapon. And the reason why I think it's weird to compare it to Asmongold is because Asmongold understood how to charge the greatsword. Not only that, but he also understood how to get the true charge slash. Now, was he doing it very well? No, but he knew how to do it, which is the important part. Now, I almost feel like he's comparing the fact that Asmongold didn't know how to use the shoulder tackle to the fact that I show speed didn't know how to use demon mode. But to me, these are two fundamentally different things. To me, it's like demon mode would be on a greatsword would be the equivalent of knowing how to charge the greatsword, or at the very least knowing how to get to a true charge slash. That would be what I would equivalent to knowing the demon mode in, dual blades. Now, the shoulder tackle would be what I would equivalent to you knowing how to do adept dodge with dual blades, which he also didn't know how to do. But Asmongold also didn't know how to shoulder tackle that Nergigante. I just think those are two very different skill levels, and ultimately I celebrated both of them playing the game because I think it's a good thing if big streamers play our video game because it exposes our video game to a much larger audience. And to me, that's always a positive. But those are just the things that I wanted to talk about. I don't want to dive too deeply, too much more deeply into the video than this because I don't want to be dissecting every little thing that was said. I agree with some things. I disagree with other things. It is what it is, but I'm happy that the video is out there. And if there's one thing that you take away from this is you can go and watch the video, and you probably should if this is something that is interesting to you, and I will link it in the description of this video if you want to check it out. But I do not want anybody fighting any battles on my behalf, which is something that I've already expressed on Twitter, and it is something that I do not like. I don't like conflict. I don't like gaming communities doing these civil war bullshit type of scenarios. And I actually think that it was interesting that a lot of people came to my channel saying like, oh, I had to unsubscribe because of all the negativity. Like, I know that they came after watching Meatman's video, and apparently they came with the idea that I've just been shitting all over Monster Hunter Wilds, which is strange because if we look at, this is the latest content on my channel, and there is one video here that is probably more critical than usual, and it is mostly Ratatosker's talking points. And in the beginning of this video, I don't know if this was on my version of the podcast or on the one in his channel, because we did two of them. There was one for Ratatosker's channel and one for my channel. And I remember at the beginning of the discussion, I said, so I wish Wilds was more challenging, but I still love the game. You wish Wilds was more challenging, and you can't find that much enjoyment playing it. That was kind of like where we were at. And for the most part, if you look through me and Mike's video, like sure I talk about the difficulty, but it's overall a very positive video. You look at the Future of Wilds positive video, the how-to videos, which I know I'm behind. I want to get on I want to get back to doing these guide videos, but it's just the 4-hour video has been on my mind. I had to think about a lot what I was going to say and how I was going to tackle all this. But, we're going to get back to it. I'm going to do the hammer next. I already have a lot of the hammer stuff nailed down. But if you look at the videos that I've been doing, right, I have my Gunlance mix set, how to charge blade, spoiler cast with Cowboy, a review cast with Cowboy, more guide content, news content, my review, which was mostly positive with some criticism on the lack of a gathering hub, on me wishing that the roster was bigger, which is like, who doesn't want more monsters? And me wanting more challenge, which a lot of people apparently also want. So it's mostly positive content. Then we have the live streams, in which, interestingly enough, in the very first live streams that I did for Monster Hunter Wilds, I was being targeted by the community for the exact opposite reason that I'm being targeted now, where people were coming in, shitting all over the game and telling me, how can you play this game? This is a shallow shadow of what Monster Hunter used to be, which is impressive to me that I can both be a glazer and a doomer at the same time. But, it is what it is. That's going to be it for this video. I just want to get back to playing video games and enjoying myself. And yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the like button. If you guys hated it and you hate my guts and you never want to see me in the YouTube feed ever again, you can also just, there's 3 dots on this video that you can click, and it says like hide this channel, and then you don't have to see me in your feed either. So if you feel that strongly about it, that's also something that you can do. But anyways, I'm going to keep covering Monster Hunter because I absolutely love the game, regardless of whatever you feel like I've been spreading terrible negativity and shitting all over it or whatever. I'll see you guys in the next one, or maybe not. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.